Excellent!
I think the first time that I heard the term godlike was back in the dark days of my Diablo 2 addiction. As gaming parlance evolved, the quest for the proper hyperbolic terminology to describe gaming itself became ever more difficult. After all, how does one outdo preeminent superlatives such as ultimate, uber, epic, and extreme? Whether you're talking about randomly generated stats on a Grand Matron bow, or in this case, the best damn X99 motherboard that MSI can engineer, godlike just seems appropriate. This is the MSI X99A Godlike Gaming Carbon. It supports Intel's Enthusiast line of Haswell eSocket 2011-3 processors and features a neutral black color scheme to provide better flexibility for the built-in RGB lighting. It also costs $600. So as you can see, I've already been playing with this board and I've assembled a bit of a test build to showcase the looks and the lighting. Let's start from the top though with a rundown of features and specifications, starting with a quick unboxing. You get a very premium feeling package, lol, with the Godlike Gaming Carbon, and not a bad set of accessories either. A door hanger and a fold-out color motherboard layout guide, SATA labeling stickers and a driver DVD, 3 manuals for the hardware, the software, and a quick start guide, no less than 10 black SATA cables, half of them with 90-degree angled connectors, 2 sizable antenna for the built-in 802.11 killer Wi-Fi. These have magnetic bases on them too for easy positioning, which is nice. A black and red I/O shield that is unchanged from the black and red version of the X99 Godlike that launched last year. It is a nice I/O shield though. And 4 ribbon-style SLI bridges that should accommodate you for most 2-, 3-, and 4-way SLI configs, although I would say it would be nice to have gotten a rigid PCB version for maybe 3- and 4-way configs. You also get voltage check leads, a G-Series case badge, a metal-sheathed 8GB on-the-go USB drive with Type-C and Micro-B connectors that has drivers and software on it. I would love to see this become a trend for all motherboards over optical discs with drivers, by the way. You get a Turbo U.2 card, which is an M.2 to U.2 mini SAS adapter for drives like Intel 750 series, and it thankfully also has a PCB that matches the motherboard, since this would be very visible in most systems. And finally, your M connectors for front panel connections and a 1/4" to 1/8" adapter for the big headphone plug on the rear I/O. The X99A Godlike Gaming Carbon motherboard itself is eATX and just screams high-end at you thanks to its significant heft, the black carbon fiber accents, and the attention to detail in the design. Of course, thanks to the LGA 2011-3 socket and X99 chipset, this motherboard supports existing Haswell E processors like the 8-core 5960X, and although it's too early to officially confirm, I would be very extremely surprised if this board doesn't also support Broadwell E CPUs like the promised 10-core 6950X, which is rumored to launch in the next few months. While pure gamers might opt for Intel's less expensive Skylake platform, for those who want to work and play on their computer, there's just no substitute for the raw CPU horsepower available on this enthusiast platform. Beyond that, you've got 8 DIMM slots for quad-channel DDR4 memory, up to 16 gigs per DIMM now for up to 128 gigs total, and MSI has validated kits going up to 3400 speed. Also note the steel-reinforced DIMM slots. Not that DDR4 sticks are super heavy or anything, but they do look pretty badass. They provide some EMI shielding, and they match the PCIe slots down below quite nicely. Speaking of which, you get 5 full-size PCI Express Gen 3 x 16 slots, giving you the flexibility of triple slot spacing with a couple GPUs, or 3-way and 4-way SLI or Crossfire support if you're using a 40 PCIe lane CPU like a 5930K or 5960X. My build here has a 5820K in it right now, which has 28 PCIe lanes and should never be used with this motherboard. So, sorry. If you bought this board and a 5820K, return them, get a $300 X99 board and a 5930K for about $100 less. These PCIe slots also have that steel-reinforced design though, which continues to look quite badass, and also provides more support for heavy graphics card as well as that EMI shielding. For fan support, you get 5 total headers, 2 for CPU and 3 for system fans. All are 4-pin PWM, but on a board this size, a couple more would have been nice, to be honest. Along the bottom of the Gaming Carbon, you've got a debug LED, one of 2 USB 3.1 headers, front panel connectors, a switch for the dual BIOS, a couple system fan headers, a couple USB 2.0 headers, a slow mode switch for exotic cooling, clear CMOS jumper, and an audio switch to choose between front panel audio and the ESS supported 1/4" headphone jack on the rear I/O. For storage options, there's the single key M.2 slot between those last 2 PCIe connectors, which supports SATA or NVMe connections, U.2 via that riser card in the accessories, or standard M.2 drives at 42, 60, and 80mm in length. It's in a good spot as it won't be blocked by most single or 2-way GPU configurations, although it does share bandwidth with the SATA Express connector on the board, so you can't use both at once. You get 10 total SATA Rev 3 ports on the board. 1 through 6 have RAID support, and 5 and 6 have the aforementioned SATA Express option. There's plenty of connectivity here for storage, although I'm inclined to wish for another M.2 slot. That would have taken some PCIe lanes away though, and I think MSI wanted to leave this board wide open for 4-way graphics card setups. Moving up the right side of the board, we have the other USB 3.1 header that supports supercharging as well, 24-pin main power connection, third system fan header, and voltage read points. Next to those are the power reset and OC Genie surface-mounted buttons, OC Genie being MSI's automatic overclocking feature. There's also an OC switch with an LED. When the LED is in the blue position, OC Genie will overclock some, and when it's in the red position, OC Genie will be more aggressive and overclock more. Now let's take a look at the CPU socket, flanked on both sides by those DDR4 memory slots. It's a turbo socket, meaning it's actually got extra pins totaling 2036 connections instead of the standard 2011, which can help with high-end overclocking, particularly if you're overclocking the cache. MSI has also taken steps to clear this area as much as possible from other components. That's to make room for LN2 pots that are used for exotic cooling. Despite that, you might run into some space conflicts if you're using a tower-style air cooler and a GPU in the top slot, so bear that in mind. I actually originally set this system up with an Enermax air cooler, but I had to rotate it 90 degrees in order to make it fit, and I didn't like how it looks, so I grabbed the Corsair H110 and installed that instead. For power delivery, you have a 12-phase design with 55-amp Dr. Moss MOSFETs, 60-amp superferrite chokes, and tantalum capacitors to provide smooth, reliable power for overclocking. The VRMs have 2 dedicated heat sinks with a heat pipe connecting them, and supplemental CPU power is delivered via 8-pin and 4-pin connectors at the top of the board. You should have no need for a discrete sound card thanks to the Audio Boost 3 Pro configuration on the Godlike Gaming Carbon, powered by Nahimic and supporting both 7.1 channel surround and high impedance headphones via the 1/4 inch rear jack. MSI went with Chemicon audio capacitors, independent Texas Instruments amps for each audio pathway, and another ESS Sabre ES9018 DAC for the big headphone jack that supports up to 600 ohm impedance headphones. All these audio components are EMI shielded and can be further tweaked and tuned using the Nahimic software. Onto rear panel I/O. On the left are a PS2 combo port and a couple USB 2.0 ports. Next to that is a clear CMOS button, and then your fastest and bestest USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports in Type A and Type C trim, which are controlled by an ASMedia ASM1142 chip. To the right of that are dual killer E2400 gigabit RJ45 LAN ports and 4 more USB 3.1 Type A connectors. You can effectively combine these killer NIC ports with the killer 802.11ac Wi-Fi card right next to it for 2,867 megabits per second of theoretical throughput using MSI's killer double-shot X3 Pro software, which kind of combines them all together. It also does packet prioritization, so your gaming packets get priority over, say, your Windows Update packets, for example. The 802.11ac Wi-Fi is dual band, and it also supports Miracast. Finally, you've got your gold-plated audio connections, this big 1/4 inch jack for headphones, and 1/8 inch jacks for mic in, 7.1 channel surround out, or an optical Toslink SPDIF connection. Is that all? Well, no, not quite. Let's take a look at the UEFI, and then we will wrap things up with an RGB LED Mystic Light demo. Alright guys, I am now tapping delete so I can jump into the BIOS here and give you guys at least a quick walkthrough to show you kind of what to expect. I'm not going to go into detail with all the different things, but hopefully at least, give you a better idea. And hey, first off, I want to point out you got full mouse and keyboard support. The mouse was even plug and play. I booted up without it plugged in, and I just plugged it in and it worked, or at least I did that earlier when I was kind of browsing through here at first. Anyway, you'll notice that you got X99A Godlike Gaming Carbon with even a carbon version of the BIOS. They blacked out everything here, that's kind of cool. At the top, you got sort of a quick view of different things like your CPU temperature, what's installed, 5820K, current memory configuration and what it's all set to, as well as a boot device priority, and you can drag and drop stuff right here if you want to change up your boot devices. You also have quick access to buttons like OC Genie, so you can activate that here rather than going through or pushing the actual button on the motherboard. There's also an XMP button. You can use that to quickly enable XMP mode for your memory. Beyond that, some shortcuts in the top right let you take a screenshot, for example, add things to favorites, or there's even a drop down here for different languages. Settings tab over here is going to have access to some basic stuff like system status. Advanced, this will also get you your boot priority. This has more boot options than any motherboard I've ever different. There's actually 13 different boot options and the boot priority here. That's a lot. Anyway, also some security options if you want to add an admin password or save and exit. Here's your overclocking area. This is what probably a lot of you are interested in. I've already switched this over to an advanced mode. It's in simple mode by default, but here you can access, well, lots of the stuff you guys are probably familiar with if you've done much overclocking on X99. Again, I'm not going to explain what all these are, but I will say that if you mouse over each one, the area over here on the right side will sort of give you a little rundown of what it all is, and give you a little bit better idea of what you're doing as you're making adjustments to all these. Digital power delivery, ring, bus voltage, all that good stuff, you know. You play with all these settings and that's how you overclock. That's the simplest explanation of overclocking I've ever seen. Anyway, CPU specs down here as well as memory, Z, and CPU features. The M-Flash function is available right here. This will allow you to easily update the BIOS from a USB drive. And then if you mouse all the way over to the right here, you'll get an actual pop-out that comes out. So this will allow you to access profiles, so you can easily save to profile. You can even load them onto a USB or recover them from a USB. Hardware monitor will access the hardware monitor function, which takes a little moment to load, but then you get access to CPU and system temperatures. At the top you can access all of the fans, and here I really like what they've done with the smart fan mode. It gives you 4 different points of intonation, or I don't know what these are. There's a term for that, but anyway, you can drag these around so you can give yourself a nice easy fan curve so you know your fan stays pretty quiet until things actually start to get warm or that kind of thing. You do have that also available for your system fan, so I only have one system fan plugged in, but by default you just have a single guy you can drag around here, or you can turn on smart fan mode, and that will again give you that fan ramp up option, which is really, really nice to have. Actually, really like what MSI has done with the fan controls here. Finally, you've got the Board Explorer, and this is just a Board Explorer. It will show you actually pretty accurately as you mouse over different things what everything is and what's installed. If you mouse over the SATA, for example, you get sort of a blow-up look at the SATA ports. If you mouse over something where something's connected, like the CPU, it will tell you that you have a 5820K installed, or whatever CPU you happen to have installed. Same goes with your memory slots. You can even get a close-up of the I/O and what's currently plugged into the I/O, like the mouse and keyboard. Anyway, so that's pretty handy too. Moving right along to an LED lighting demo, and I kind of got things situated here. The first thing that I did actually was go back into the UEFI BIOS, and I disabled the LEDs on the board because this board has several LEDs other than the 5 points of lighting that you get right out of the gate. It's got some LEDs on the rear I/O and the NIC slots back there that are red. It's got some more LEDs down here, like a blue one. And you can go into the UEFI BIOS and you can disable all of those. It will also disable your surface-mounted power reset buttons up there. The one thing it does not turn off is the debug LED down here in the lower right. I wish you could do that too. So MSI, make that happen in the future maybe. I'm loading up the Mystic Light app. There's actually 2 ways to control the LEDs on this board. If you're not running the app or you're not booted up into Windows and running the software directly from MSI, everything will be red, kind of like you see it right now. If you get the app, you can load it up and it connects directly via Bluetooth. There's a Bluetooth, actually an add-on mini PCIe chip on this board. It's kind of hidden underneath the shroud, but it is there. And then you can use Mystic Light. So Mystic Light is pretty full-featured actually. They've had this since about last year. So first off, you can just bring up the color wheel and you can kind of tap wherever you want on the wheel. It'll tell you what color you're choosing down there in the middle. What I like about this board is none of the LEDs shine right out at you. They're actually all directed down onto the board. So you'll notice there's a bank down here on the lower left, kind of near the sound. There's a small light that's in the chipset, which kind of shoots out to the side. That one's really a lot less visible than the others, but it is still there. You would be able to see more of it up above if the graphics card wasn't blocking it. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm using a GTX 970 in this build, it's because it's the only card I could find that didn't light up on its own and didn't really conflict for the color scheme. I put a black piece of tape over the blue on it, so everything else would stand out a little bit better. Anyway, beyond that, there's another bank of lights that's up here, just below the CPU socket. That's kind of right where the it's right where the heatsink is, and it's just north of where the GPU is. And then lastly, 2 more sets. One is up by the power delivery at the very top of the board, and then there's another set that is just to the left of the memory slot, kind of between the rear I/O and the memory, which is also a little bit more difficult to see, but gives a pretty cool effect down in there. Anyway, moving on. Aside from just choosing, between different colors that you might want to put on there, there's also some functions on here. So there's a gaming function that you can enable, and that will actually actively interact with games that you might be playing. in various ways. I didn't try that out too much. There's a breathing function, of course, that you can do. So you have flashing, which gives kind of makes it look like lightning's going off, and this will also cycle between colors. That's kind of cool. You have stack, which allows you to stack some different functions. So this is kind of wild, you know. It just kind of jumps between a bunch of different things. Again, it's cycling between colors. It's flashing. We have the wave function that I kind of like. So this will kind of cycle through a wave, different colors across the board. Of course, if you really want, you can just turn them all off. And then the only LEDs you're left with is the debug LED down there, which is still fairly useful. There's one other function you can do in here, and that's on the far right. This is on the app again, and you can hit play, and you can load up a song, and you can have it go along with music. So this is a Ben Prunty album. I hope you guys can't hear it very well because I don't want to get flagged. Anyway, he did the FTL soundtrack, and everyone should go check out his stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to play too much of this, but as you can maybe tell, it's kind of cycling through along with the music, so that's a pretty cool function too. Anyway, very full-featured app, and there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. I'm pretty impressed. So in conclusion, the things that I like about this motherboard are 1, that MSI listened to fans such as myself last year when we said that we wanted a blacked out version of this board instead of the original red highlighted version. 2 would be that the LED options and Bluetooth control of the LED options are very well implemented and very flexible. It's just a lot of fun to play with. And 3 would be, of course, the extreme cooling and overclocking features that have already been put to good use on the non-carbon version of this board with some really extreme overclocks. As for cons, I would have liked to see maybe another fan header or 2, and although the LEDs are awesome, I was really hoping to see an RGB header on the board itself. I probably wouldn't mention this if I hadn't recently reviewed the Asus Maximus 8 formula, which allows you to add more lights to the case and have them also controlled by the board. Lastly, it's just really expensive. At $600, the MSRP is $50 more even than the original X99A Godlike gaming that launched in 2015. So to sum up, this is a niche motherboard that is probably out of the price range for most people. That said, it certainly lives up to the Godlike moniker thanks to the build quality and features, and for those who can afford it, it will certainly be the centerpiece of future epic gaming and workstation desktop builds. I personally can't wait to see the first monstrous build to feature this board, a 6950X, and a 4-way next-gen GPU configuration. Assuming, of course, that all the rumors about those things turn out to be true. That's all for this review, though. If you enjoyed it, then you can help me out by supporting my cause. Ways to do this include hitting that like button right down there, wherever it happens to be, using my Amazon link in the description when you're shopping for stuff on Amazon, picking up one of my brand new shirt designs at store.paulshardware.net. I've also still got hoodies, mugs, and pint glasses, so get them too while they're hot. And finally, you can subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And as always, thank you for watching. I probably wouldn't mention this if I hadn't recently reviewed the Asus Maximus 8 formula, which allows you to add more lights to the case and have a goddamn train roll by right as you're in the middle of your goddamn outro. F*** you, train. F*** you right in the train hole. Trains have train holes that they have intercourse with, right?